Hello, and welcome to the Grand Cinema Hotel, a podcast hosted by two friends who love cinema. Tonight, you'll be staying in room 171, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, the second installment of Miles Morales' story. So go ahead, get comfortable, and throw on that Do Not Disturb sign as we navigate the Spider-Verse with Spider-Man.
All stations, drop what you're doing and stop Spider-Man.
Wait, me?
Miles Morales, he's entering Sector 4.
What's going on, all my Spider-Men, and thank you for checking back in to the Grand Cinema Hotel. As always, don't forget to like, subscribe, comment if you're listening on YouTube. My name is Gus, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Alvaro. Say what's up, man.
What's up, guys?
And sorry for being gone for so long. We didn't mean to close the hotel for a few weeks. It's just, I guess life just gets in the way, right?
Yeah.
We attempted to pump out an episode here or there, but gotta say, haven't really seen too many good movies in the past couple of weeks. We made an attempt to kind of go back to our early days by doing a film like Master Gardener, but I don't think we really cared about that film all too much after watching it. You got anything quick to say about Master Gardener?
And the Grand Cinema Hotel does not like Nazis, so it's pretty simple.
I don't mind going ahead and saying that up front. Weird movie, right? She let me hit because I'm a reformed neo-Nazi.
Yeah, I mean, I guess just real quick because we did bring it up, but Paul Schrader has his formula, and I did look into, I guess this was his, these last three movies were apparently his goodbye to the character. So I guess it makes
God's
sense.
Lonely Man. It's like the Goodbye trilogy.
Yeah, and so I guess, and in that way, each one of the movies shows, like the sins we've made as Earth, which obviously in First Reformed, it's like we're killing Earth, and then I don't even know what the middle movie is that they're referring to.
Card Counter?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So gambling, and then this third one is, I guess, just being racist. But
I know I'm getting dragged into this.
I like Paul Schrader a lot. I like his writing. I like The One Note, but this was not for me.
Yeah, no, I'm not gonna lie. I fell asleep 3 or 4 times. I found it extremely uninteresting. The big plot reveal or, the driving point of the story just didn't hook me. Just completely like a nothing burger for me. We walked out of the movies and I just remember telling you like, well, that was a miss. And I already know we're not going to do an episode on that. And then, I mean, the week after that, I just think that we didn't go to the movies at all, right? I didn't go. Did you?
Not
after Master Gardener, between Master Gardener and Spider-Verse?
No, I didn't. I did actually. I did go watch Blackberry. That is what I watched.
Oh, you saw Blackberry?
Yeah.
How was that?
I mean that is better than Master Gardener. In all honesty, if I think I could make an episode on that movie. I like it enough to make an episode on that movie. But
one of those movies about product, the new trend.
Yeah, about product, But I guess it's because this is more of a downfall of one and just how short lived. And since I was there, I guess it just maybe resonates a little more. But it's well acted, and I think that's always something that I appreciate. Nice.
So I haven't really watched anything too interesting in our small hiatus. I've mostly just been watching kids movies with my daughter, and went to Disneyland recently, so I was kind of rewatching a bunch of Disney movies just to kind of get that excitement going again. But we're back. And I know we have this episode to pump out and another movie that we're really excited for, and, Oppenheimer soon. So I think the little summer vacation we had kind of early, it's kind of good to get that out of the way, because now I think the good shit's starting to come out, right? Or at least the stuff we want to talk about.
Yeah, the Flash and stuff like that.
the Flush, like no, I mean like Talk
Blue
to
Shittle.
Me, right?
Yeah,
Asteroid City,
Barbie.
Yeah, Barbie. The Barbenheimer day, right?
Yeah. So
Mission Impossible, right?
Yeah.
So I do think that there's exciting times ahead.
And I mean, today we're obviously here to talk about what is apparently the best movie ever.
I was waiting to get to it, but let's crack it open. Yeah, the best movie of all time per Letterboxd. You know, the most reliable source on earth. Well, let's just do this. You're a bigger Letterboxd guy than I am. You're a patron, if you don't mind me putting that out there. What do you think about this? You have more opinions on Letterboxd than I do.
I think because IMDb is very boomer, and any of the other places you would have to like to write a review on Rotten Tomatoes, besides just like the audience one, it does seem a little bit more into you going too in depth with it. But the fact that Letterboxd is just an app and you can hop on there and rank stuff, I think what that really does is whenever a Marvel movie comes out, a lot of them, general audience that do really enjoy those movies tend to really cheer for it on Letterboxd, because I mean, even like something like the Spider-Man movie that came out, where all three of them come out. I always forget the name of that movie.
No Way Home.
Like that movie is overly ranked on Letterboxd as well, in my opinion, because I just think there's a lot of people log it, and a lot of people go in there and say it's like their favorite movie ever. Which I'm not here to, I guess, hate on, but I do think that it just comes up with a lot of what we talk about, living in the moment.
Do you think that is a small piece of evidence that Letterboxd's audience is obviously skewing way younger? Like it's kind of a warped perspective of a younger mind, a younger movie fan.
Well, I mean, I guess
maybe 35 and under crowd.
Maybe, but I guess it's more the fact that it is just like it goes at itself being a social app for movies. So I think, yeah, the younger generation in general is more tied to social media apps, but there's a lot of directors, a lot of old reviewers on there. So I think it's just the accessibility for certain movies, because it's not like any of the movies that we watch sometimes are really that heavily skewed or reviewed. Those seem way more pure with, I guess, their reviews, or like people who are watching them seem to take the time. I know there's the one-liners, or it always kind of gets like everybody on there kind of writes something dumb, but everybody just kind of looks at the popular comments, which obviously is always funny stuff. But if you really kind of dive in, there's a lot of people who just, for no reason, are writing these crazy ass essays about these movies. So I always think, where else? It's kind of like, it reminds me of blogs and stuff like that. So I mean, that's the part that I like, and I don't know if it's more of a younger audience. I do think it for a popular movie like this, I think it just happens to be the easiest thing to review on.
I see. I'm not sure why this movie has had this kind of wave of support. I don't necessarily feel like I'm against it, because I do think this movie is very good. I do think it's almost, well, it feels weird to say it's almost a perfect movie, because I gave it a 4.5, but I did think that it's not that close to a 5. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that 0.5 is a huge barrier. It isn't like, oh, it's almost a 5. I don't know if that makes a lot of sense, but yeah, I really enjoyed this movie, but I do think that it's just Spider-Man is his own entity that's so much bigger than, I don't know. He's like Spider-Man, Mickey Mouse, Pikachu. You know what I mean? Where
Yeah.
it's so big. It's just beyond the realm of Marvel movies, Sony movies, anything. I just think it's kind of one of those worldwide phenomenon, honestly.
I do think for me personally, the reason why I kind of like rank it where it is up to you, and I think what really drives it for me to be up there is that artistically, it's one of the closest things to a comic book movie, and it just really just feel like you're flipping through pages as you're watching the movie, which is an artistic choice I think not a lot of people took before, but this the second part of this trilogy, or at least the first one, I would say, really helped shift what people are kind of using as a style now for an animation. I think that they want to make more, just a slightly better story base. I'm not going to say it's this deep story, but I just think that they're really tapping into the love for the comic book, and it's definitely not the first movie to do that, but I think there's ways that express a lot of emotions in here, the reasons we kind of watch movies and talk about them on here, that through animation. I know you're really heavy into animation, but this is like putting as much money as you can put into something like that.
Yeah,
you know?
I mean, I think what I was gonna say actually about my letterbox comment was that I'm not necessarily mad either that a film that is pushing the boundaries of what's possible with animation and creating this new style that is going to be a template for the future. I also think that's really cool, that it's,
Yeah.
I don't know if it's weird to say that a Spider-Man movie could be experimental, but it does feel that way.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool that it's gotten that kind of recognition of just being something different, like if it had been animated like the Mario movie, I would be like, this is a baby movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the fact that there's so much love and care and, the scene of Miles being chased through the Spider-Verse by all the other ones is like, it's something that took 4 years. And like, I was telling someone that we both know that after I saw this movie, I'm like, I could watch this 10 times and probably still have hundreds of details that I'm not seeing. And that it's cliche, but every frame really is a painting. So for it to get that kind of love, I think is a real win for the, the artist out there, that you can make something boundary pushing that will still get the recognition and the love it deserves.
Yeah, I mean, some of the directors that we really praise on this film or on this podcast that, we're looking forward to watching their movies, even something like Christopher Nolan or Wes Anderson. And their ultimate dream, they would have control of every single aspect of a movie. And we would probably get these even more amazing things, but that's not how life works. But in something like this movie, the first one and the second one, it does seem like the artists have really taken their time to really take that to like the next level. And I mean, I think the way they set up every single frame in the movie seems like I can draw this exactly how I want. The walls can be exactly how I like them to be. They could be the exact color that I want them to be. And I think that's just something.
5 different colors at once.
Yeah, and I think that's something, obviously life isn't seen that way, but a lot of the emotions that are shown here, which are a lot for different characters, every character that we get here, I think is what kind of pushes it for me, like you said, for it to be experimental. Is the story pretty cliche? Yes, but it's a comic book story. So, I mean, the comic books are if you grew up on them, I know a lot of the older generation did, the stories weren't complicated. Yes, some of the darker ones came out later, but a lot of the first initial ones are just fun stuff. So I do think for the source material, they really tried to elevate. And I think something that obviously this goes without saying is the fact that they actually put someone who feels like someone like the black culture a lot of times has people portrayed in movies that it's not really shown, like for example how Jordan Peele portrays black people, right? And it does feel like in Across the Spider-Verse it's tapped in and wrote by somebody who's actually had those experiences. It doesn't feel very fake, which I think is kind of hard to really authenticate in such of like big movie like that. Usually that's when it kind of feels pretty gimmicky. So that's without saying, because obviously Metro Boomin does the album and stuff like that. So it's very inclined by black culture, which I think is refreshing.
Yeah, I mean the directors. It's funny that you say that because the directors is a Portuguese dude and a white guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely get what you mean about the feeling not cliched or pandered to, or that this is like okay, here's kind of a sidebar of what I was gonna say. But you know how in the culture war now, every movie that's bad is bad because it's woke.
Yeah.
Have you seen the screenshot? It's the YouTube video. It's like Spider-Man into Across the Spider-Verse, woke but good. And it's like, this movie's so good that even the people who hate quote unquote wokeness can't even deny it. Right?
They're like, dang, this is
and
too
I just
good.
think it's because it does feel extremely authentic, right?
Yeah.
And I think a small piece of evidence that you could use to see the kind of care that's put into this is the character of Pav, right? So the Indian Spider-Man. Originally, Lord and Miller, the producers, they were, the sequence had been written out. The animation had started being done, and it just felt kind of bleh to them, right? They didn't really feel like they were getting the most out of it. And that they actually talked to a group of animators who were like Asian and Indian. So then they were kind of asking them like, well, what's like wrong with this? And they were like, this just doesn't feel authentic to what an Indian Spider-Man would feel like. So then they got a writer's room together of the guy who plays Spider-Man. I'll just call him Pav, but Karan Sunny. He was the guy from Deadpool, right?
Okay.
He was in the writer's room, the comedian that we both know, but Hassan Minaj, right? So he was in the writing room, and they just, they got a group of people together who could authentically make that character feel real. And that right there is just like why the movie, you can just feel all of the love and care coming through the screen,
Yeah, because I mean, obviously, a lot of the black culture influence on here might just be on Shamik Moore. Like just him being given that free range to, if you were Spider-Man, how would you do this? And I think that's anybody who's a Spider-Man fan's dream, to be able to do that. And
yeah, I mean, Miles Morales just feels authentically like a Afro-Latino from New York. You know what I mean? Like
exactly.
Nothing about it feels fake at all, which I think is probably why he's one of the, I guess, better Spider-Mans. I don't know. Is it recency bias to say he's the best Spider-Man?
And I don't think so.
Like clear as Tom Holland, right?
Oh, yeah.
For sure, right?
Yeah.
Andrew Garfield can't be saved by revisionism. So I guess it really is just Toby and Shamik Moore,
Yeah.
But, or what about, what's his name? The guy who plays Peter B. Parker? I'm not really too familiar with him because, Jake Johnson, right? I never really liked him that much. But him as Peter B. Parker, I'm like, that is like classic Spider-Man right there, right?
Yeah.
Even though it's a Spider-Man that we don't really get to see all too often in the movies, at least, like an older Spider-Man. But yeah,
it's like that's the part that you always envisioned after you read the comics when he is married. That's what Peter B. Parker
yeah. I mean,
is.
they harp on it here and there, but they just, they love the Marvel as the comics love them teenage struggling Spider-Man. They don't really go back too often to the adult Spider-Man.
Yeah, but I do think Miles Morales, in terms of just being more, as they say in the zeitgeist of the culture, more an updated version of Spider-Man, and ultimately having what in this movie shows like a very unique outfit. It's a suit that even this movie kind of plays with it, but it's one of the first really heavy variants, I guess, of Spider-Man that like really took it further to like change what the outfit looked like,
Yeah, I mean, it's a recurring joke throughout the entire movie about why does his suit look like that, right?
Yeah.
I thought the movie too, this is kind of getting a little ahead of myself, but it really played well in like a meta aspect of what Miles Morales is going through as being a different type of Spider-Man than the rest. And then the real life counter of how what it's done to comic fans' brains to have an Afro-Latino Spider-Man, right?
Yeah.
And then you tie in that spoiler alert. I think this is going to be a spoiler episode for sure. So definitely go see this movie if you haven't already. But Donald Glover makes an appearance in the movie. And the reason Miles Morales even exists as a character is because of the campaign back in the day of Donald Glover for Peter Parker.
Yeah.
And then from there, they went ahead and just created Miles Morales, right? And I do think that, him being this like variant of like, he shouldn't exist, like how it was treated in real life versus how he's treated in the movie. I just thought that was like a perfect marriage of like taking something meta and actually making it something that pushes the story forward instead of just being about like an Easter egg or a reference to, I see you're making a reference to real life, like that. It actually made that a driving point of the story. And I think that's something that really elevated it a lot from the first one, to be honest.
Yeah. That's where I agree with you too, and I think that's even you kind of talked about like the Afro-Latino stuff and like his mom being the Latina and how he sees and views his son. I think there's movies that try to capture that Latino essence or like that kind of family relationship.
The Latino
Latinos,
heat, shout out Eddie Guerrero.
yeah, or like that family relationship that I know other minorities have, but that why is this movie capturing it so well? Because in all reality, it doesn't need to. But it's just doing it and adding layers to what you're talking about. They just seem to add to the care that this movie is, even just in how it's animated, but also the character, how they're fleshed out.
I think because he's such a well fleshed out character, they make the joke about how there's the meme online how girls, they need Halle Bailey to play the Little Mermaid so that they could be like, she's just like me, right?
Yeah.
And guys will be like, oh, Goku, Rocket Raccoon, Miles Morales, he's just like me for real,
They're
right?
all me, yeah.
But I think it's because Miles Morales is so fleshed out, you know? Like, as funny as it is to be like, wow, that raccoon is just like me, Miles Morales is so authentic to... so authentic to just like being a real person,
Yeah.
you know, like not a character. Like I feel like Miles Morales is the kind of character that you can picture in the real world, almost like Lydia Tarr. You know what I mean? Where if you told me that was Miles Morales and he was Spider-Man, I would believe it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't know if I've ever really felt that way about Peter Parker, even though he's supposed to be so relatable. But yeah, I don't know.
Because it's not specifically for me, my generation. I like some of it, you know, but a lot of the culture of what he's indulged in is what we're around now. So I think that really helps a lot of the people who are watching it now feel like literally he's me. He has ASAP Rocky's poster in his room,
Yeah,
you know?
I mean Jordan
Ones,
ones and
yeah.
you know video games, and he's got cool cool shit all over his room, like anime collectibles and stuff, right? And
Yeah.
he's just like that perfect blend of where like cool internet culture and like nerd culture like blend together, you know? Because I did want to say, I feel like they don't harp on it enough, and I don't know if this is some weird coded shit that I don't know if anyone's ever mentioned this, but do you feel like they don't talk about Miles Morales being as smart as like Peter Parker? Not that they try to downplay it, but you know, he goes to that really fancy school, and they talk about how he could go to, I think, Yale, so that he could be like do studying on multiverses and stuff like
Yeah.
that. But they never harp on it like he's a nerd, you know, even though
Nah.
he's a huge nerd. Like that is part of Spider-Man's essence, right?
Yeah, is that he's insanely smart.
But then also now, like, I don't know, maybe the difference is that when Peter Parker was created, it was not cool to be a nerd, right? But now there's a whole different shift on what it means to be like smart, nerdy, but also kind of like, you know, I can study multiverses and I wear my Jordan 1s and my lab coat, you know?
And I did think maybe it has to do with the same aspect of what we talked about, character establishment and Batman and Superman. I mean, Batman and Spider-Man have it the most. Like you said, even the movie kind of makes fun of, let me guess, your uncle died, you know?
Yeah, that's one of my funnier lines. In a while.
But I think it's the same way with that being a recurring theme, that it's something that's already established. So it's him wanting to go to an out-of-state school and him being able to study the multiverse almost just seems now like you already know he's a genius, you know, or that he's really smart because he's a sophomore and they're talking about this, you know. And I just think this specific, like, I agree with what you're saying, because these specific movies don't seem to harp on it as much as the whole other shit, like especially the Tobey Maguire thing, you know.
Yeah, the first one he's graduating,
Andrew Garfield.
and then the second one, then, you know, they're like, Peter, your papers due, you know what
Yeah.
I mean? And he's freaking out about that, and Miles Morales is just so got it down, you know, that he's kind of like, yeah, I know multiverse is whatever, but also like I want to go hang out with Gwen instead. You know?
I guess the other sidebar of it, because everybody is like, you know, you compare Miles to Peter because there's the whole other aspect of like, this fool's never a photographer, right, Miles?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I've never really read the Miles Morales comics that much, so
So
I
it was-
don't know if that's even a hobby that he has.
He's like a variant, like I was gonna say, like could you brought up Pav, like Pav makes Spider-Man look easy, you know.
Yeah.
He's like having a great time being Spider-Man.
Before we get into the movie too much, you want to talk about our favorite Spider people?
Yeah,
So I think Hobie Brown clears, right? Spider-Punk is my favorite of the Spider-Men. Even maybe more than Miles Morales, maybe more than Miguel O'Hara. The Peter Parkers the stock is down on Peter Parker for me.
Yeah.
I got to be honest.
it's so Jover.
I'm loving Miguel. I'm loving Hobie Brown. I'm loving Pav, right? Even Spider-Gwen, I'm like, she's kind of, she you know, she was
Yeah.
the main character for like the first 20 minutes. I was like,
It's
I
pretty
wouldn't mind
hard.
spending the rest of the movie here.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly.
But I think for me, it's Spider-Punk.
I think it's just refreshing, man. We've been around it for so long. We've seen the best of, you know, there's the memes that we've from the animated series from the 90s, you know. Those live pretty, like, dear
And
to me.
The 60s one, too.
Yeah, like, it lives pretty dear to me. And I think we've got our best Peters already. And So we have all these other variants, and yeah, I mean, Hobie clears. Spider Punk is the coolest thing ever.
He really
And it is like it's always been, you know, but I think the fact that, come on, everybody here knows we're big Daniel Kaluuya stands, and for him to add another cool character to his repertoire, I just think that makes it 100
for
times
Daniel
cooler.
Kaluuya to also technically be Spider-Man. Who could have ever seen that coming, right?
Yeah, man. I
Miguel,
mean,
or not Miguel, sorry, Oscar Isaac. Who would have ever thought he'd be Spider-Man, right?
he broke his superhero curse.
Yeah, this is like his third attempt at a superhero.
Like every movie
thing.
he had been in was just it was X-Men, and then
Moon Knight was trash.
yeah,
The first
even
couple
that.
episodes were okay, I guess.
Yeah, and then it was something else that he's been in. But he finally broke it because, like you said, these are our, you know, a lot of the time I spent with these characters. So obviously Spider-Gwen's really cool. Miles is really cool. And so is Miguel. I mean, Miguel, me and you have talked about it before years ago. We would read comic books about just that representation, right?
Yeah,
Again,
I was like, cool, Mexican, Irish fucking Spider-Man, like that. Yes, you know?
yeah. I mean, that's like the reason, like, some of the blue shittle fate was there at the beginning, right? Oh, finally. And you're like, oh,
Yeah,
no.
yeah, you know how bad I would like Blue Beetle to just not be the worst movie I've ever seen. To just justify that it exists, right?
You know, Nova, stuff like that. So, I mean, it obviously, and it's Oscar Isaac. So, those are, Oscar Isaac is a great actor. And for him to, you know, have a role in an animated film it's impressive. But I do think that I really enjoy something like Shameik Moore, where he's kind of really thriving in his role.
Now that you bring it up with Oscar Isaac and Daniel Kaluuya, I do think that also I think another reason that this movie's so good is like the voice acting cast. It is a lot of celebrities. Like I do prefer when they use like actual voice actors because it just makes it so much more like captivating to me to be like, oh, I'm not listening to Oscar Isaac. Like, I don't know who I'm listening to. I'm just listening to Spider-Man 2099. You know what I mean? Like, or Miguel O'Hara. You know, like when you watch Dragon Ball Z when you're a kid, you weren't like, man, I'm so happy that this is Sean Schemmel. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
that's Goku. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And but the thing is, though, I think they've added really strong, like Oscar award-winning, Oscar fucking caliber actors. You know, we got Brian Tyree Henry. I mean, Haley Steinfeld before she got stuck in the Marvel cog machine with like that movie Edge of 617, I think it is. You know, she was kind of making a name for herself. Like, she had potential to be like an Anya Taylor-Joy type of actor, you know what I mean? But I think she's gotten too far deep into being Hawkeye's daughter, you know, and Spider-Gwen to maybe. Hey, she's made billions of dollars in these roles, so
it's fine.
You know, there's nothing to be sad about here. But yeah, I'm just saying, you know, but there's talent there, and I do think she does do a great job as Spider-Gwen. But Oscar Isaac, Issa Rae, Daniel Kaluuya. I thought Jason Schwartzman was really good.
Yeah, he was really good.
I did think that he was a pretty interesting villain. I do think that Kingpin and Into the Spider-Verse, it was cool. It was cool, you know, but you know, I'm not gonna lie, he's not my favorite villain of all time, right? But I did think that he's like a good starter villain for Miles. But Spot, I'm like, okay, here we go. I always love the trope of the like, you changed my life, Spider-Man. It's like, who are you?
Yeah,
you know
exactly.
I mean? Like,
that's just the comic.
I do like that, except in Fast X. When I saw that in the trailer, I was like, that you've gone too far.
Yeah, you've lost the plot, brother.
You've lost the plot. You're like, remember what happened 5 movies ago? At least Across the Spider-Verse is like, you remember what happened in the last movie?
You know, because his voice, at first, I thought it was Edward Norton. I get their voices confused.
Oh, I could see that, yeah. But Spot, not gonna lie, I never had seen this villain before. I don't know if he's in the 90s Fox animation Spider-Man show, which is really my Spider-Man show that I grew up watching.
No.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. When you fumble a baddie, that was your canon event, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't really familiar with him, but after seeing the movie and seeing just how fucking hard they went with his animations, like those scenes that he's in, the way that it kind of becomes like a little similar to, for my anime fans out there, Mob Psycho, when he kind of powers up and loses his shit. I just really, really enjoyed the animation style that they used specifically for Spot. And I thought that, you know, like we said, spoilers, this movie ends on a cliffhanger. They really have me. I'm like, okay, I can't wait to see what happens in the next one.
This is gonna just be a comparison I didn't think I would make, but because I'm thinking about these Spot sequences, look, the Spot sequences are what ideally I think Thor: Love and Thunder think the black and white scenes look like, and it just really shows that, like, I guess there's ambitiousness to think that would work. But it just works like an animation. It's exactly what you would think dark holes being opened in something like I guess even like how they say dark holes eat dark holes. I just think that animation style just portrays that feeling very well, which is like obviously very hard to record. But a lot of what they try to do in Thor: Love and Thunder is very, like, I guess, super comic-y, but it just ends up looking... It's even way harder to pull it off then, and I just think, like, I agree with you that the Spot sequences, again, just those changes of styles with him just become very effective as he himself is powering up to become a very OP villain at the end of the movie.
Yeah, and like I said, I never would have guessed that Jason Schwartzman would have given such a great performance, because he was what's his name, Gideon in Scott Pilgrim versus the World, and it's kind of my least favorite part of that movie. But he's always an interesting actor, and he's always giving, you know, these little weird performances in Wes Anderson movies.
That's what I was gonna say.
It's the summer of Schwartzman, right?
Yeah,
Asteroid City coming out soon. But yeah, I'm just really excited to see where it goes. So, you know, we're 30 minutes in. I think we could probably break down the plot a bit.
Yeah.
So the movie takes place... Well, we open up with Gwen, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we see Gwen's origin story, which we hadn't really seen before. If you know anything about the Spider-Man, Gwen Stacy storyline originally, or if you've seen the Amazing Spider-Man movies with Andrew Garfield, she always dies. That's like literally just part of who Gwen Stacy is that her character will die at some point. But in this universe where she's Spider-Gwen, it's Peter Parker. And we see her dad is also a cop who is hunting Spider-Man. So, you know, obviously things aren't too good in her universe. And then, you know, we get our introduction of Spider-Man and Spider-Woman, right? And this whole time-traveling, multiversing, hopping spider machines that they got going on. Right? You know, the sci-fi mumbo-jumbo.
I love it.
And then we cut to Miles 16 months later after the Alchemax Collider incident. He's a little bit taller. He's got a mustache that pokes out of his mask.
Yeah.
And he's got this Spider-Man thing down a little more. And it's kind of where our story really kicks off, is Gwen comes to see him. And it really just sets the story off from there, right? This multi-dimensional hopping adventure that we got. I do think that this is multiversing done right. Correct. Yeah,
I mean, I think this is, like I said, this is what they think they get it pulled off, and I guess I appreciate the attempt of trying to give me this in live action, but this just really shows that it's something too ambitious, I think, even for a regular setting, you know? Well, it has to be done this way.
A prime example of this would be Doctor Strange or Spider-Man No Way Home, right? Where we've already seen the multiple Spider-Man collabing. We saw it in the first Spider-Verse. So when No Way Home happened, like, no, it wasn't the nostalgia of like, oh my God, there's my childhood, right? But it was better because it was actually in service of the story. It wasn't just, what if we just brought back Spider-Man just cause, right?
Yeah. Especially,
I was gonna say Doctor Strange too. This was more maddening than their multiverse was. You know, their multiverse of madness was 3.
Yeah. I mean that's the direct comparison, obviously, and because a lot of the time something like Ant-Man, the latest Ant-Man rendition, tries to a lot of, you know, the negativity, or sometimes the people who are trying to back off the negative critics are always kind of like, it's just, you're not into comic books, but like, no, this is the most comic book thing I've ever seen, and I love it. You know,
Yeah.
it's you can't say you're drawing inspiration from something like this when I can feel that there's no inspiration.
Exactly.
And
even Everything Everywhere All at Once,
Mhm.
Into the Spider-Verse and Across the Spider-Verse. People are not tired of multiverse stories. People are just tired of being told the same story over and over again.
Yeah.
And I think the same thing with the superhero fatigue. It's not that these movies can't exist. It's not that they shouldn't exist. It's just don't tell me the same story over and over again.
And I think
Guardians, Batman, this movie, Across the Spider-Verse, you know, it's like you've already given me a taste. You can't take it away now, you know?
Exactly. No, I think another strong thing that I've noticed plays a lot into this, and just because we enjoy it, we're part of it, but people just really connect with a lot of the characters in here. I think even if, because we're an older crowd, obviously you're a dad, but I think even like an older crowd, you have those moments of being proud of your son, or having the trope that Brian Tyree Henry as, you know, Miles Morales' dad is having issues as well. And the movie kind of just really goes over those things. And I think even as a parent, you can watch some of that stuff and be emotionally at least taken back by what this movie is trying to lay down as its emotional groundwork. And I think that's something that the Marvel movies don't always get right. Obviously Guardians have gotten it right because it's like a goodbye to friendship and it works, but I think a lot of the times those factors are what is missing. And I've seen obviously, because something like this is really tied to even video games, people being genuinely mad that they can't get certain like in Fortnite, they can't get certain skins anymore because, oh, like my best friend, Spider-Gwen's like her favorite, you know, and I can't get her anymore. And like that really makes them mad, you know, as opposed to I couldn't get this third rendition of Doctor Strange because it's so overplayed, you know. But what you're talking about, Haley Steinfeld as Spider-Gwen, it just resonates with
a whole audience of people out there.
Yeah, like a whole, and I can't even tell you what it is because I don't think it's younger kids. There's the whole thing, supposedly, you know, it could be seen as a trans allegory as well. So you don't really even know where the support could be coming from, but the fact that the character is so well written, that's when those things happen.
Yeah, I mean, you have it there. That's one of the things that they were talking about with the Spider-Verse is woke. Right? Yeah. But guess what? You guys call everything the Matrix, and the Matrix is extremely woke. The Matrix is a trans allegory. Yeah. So
Matrix making fun of you, bozo.
Up, stop worrying about what other people have between their legs, you freaks.
Yeah.
And watch the fucking movie.
Yeah. What a weirdo.
Yeah, what a weirdo. Thinking about what's between other people's legs.
But I always
mind your business.
I have always thought about too. At the end of the day, I'm like, these are animations 1 and 2. I'm like, they're in high school, bro. So exactly, you should. I don't even know why you're thinking about that. Yeah. Just watch the movie, dude.
Yeah. You're worried about what this fictional 15-year-old has between their legs. What are you, a fucking psycho?
Yeah, be like,
go ahead and self-report yourself to the FBI, please.
Me, it's like how you said during the Guardians episode, hey, raccoon talks.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Hey,
girl Spider-Man.
Sick. You're like, horse has a mask.
Yeah, exactly. I like the horse because he shoots webs. T-Rex.
Yeah, exactly. That would be funny. So, but you know, I think that's kind of tying into another point that we've kind of glossed over. This movie's really funny. Which I think
that's another essence of Spider-Man, right? It's comedy.
Yeah, and they even joke about it in the movie. But I think this is just coming as somebody, as we both take joy in being Homelanders in movies, right? Yeah. So for a movie to generally, because Guardians did the same, for a movie to generally make me laugh, where it's kind of like jokes that we would say in the office or jokes that we would repeat with our friends, you know, I think those are the type of humor that ends up sticking with me, and both of the movies have a lot of that. And again, like I said, there's a lot of the Afro-Latin connection there, so a lot of the humor even bounces through languages. One of the small things that I'm saying where this feels very culture and lived in, me and you noticed it immediately as big soccer fans. Like his roommate has a he's a human Sun fan.
Yeah, he likes Tottenham.
But it's the fact that poster is there. You know what I mean? It's the acknowledgement of the culture, because again,
times have shifted, right?
And it feels like a character that's lived in. You know, this guy in New York would be a Tottenham fan or could be a Tottenham fan because it seemed like he was.
Should
he could
he
probably
be?
be South
No.
Korean.
Could he
Yeah,
be?
he
Yes.
shouldn't be. Yeah, but it seemed like he was supposed to be like he was like a Heung-min Son fan because he's supposed to be South Korean. But again, this does not excuse to be a Tottenham fan. But I just think it's like again what you're talking about. These characters being like, I know somebody like that.
Should add in the soundbite of what's his face?
Oh, Adam Warlock?
guy. He's
All villains are
Tottenham, all the bad guys.
Yeah, yeah. So he didn't want to help him. So I'm just saying,
Yeah, I'm not your guy in the chair, bro.
yeah, you should be.
Yeah, I do. I get you. I do like to be a bit of a Homelander in the theater. I'm just like, I've seen what you people cheer for. Right? A lot of the times, I don't give cheap laughs, to be honest. So it's really got to be earned for me. I don't gatekeep my own laughter, but I don't just laugh at anything. IKEA
Be
fall
like a-
collection.
Yeah, I mean, like a laugh is the highest compliment, right?
For me, it is, yes. But going back to the movie a bit, I wanted to kind of harp again on what you were saying about just like the emotional groundwork of the movie and why it works. It's like that's also one of the important things of Spider-Man. So I think what I'm trying to get at here is that the people who have created this movie from top to bottom just understand this character really. And, it begs to question, do Sony, because they have the full rights to the character and they've been doing this for so long, do they just understand Spider-Man more than Kevin Feige and the MCU team does? I'm not going to say Marvel Comics because that's its own separate thing, but I'm just saying the MCU versus Sony. I'm starting to think that maybe Sony understands these characters better.
It might be that
And like what it really means to be Spider-Man, right?
because I think some other difference might be too is that Disney, I mean, maybe by accident, maybe on purpose, has kind of worked as a testing ground for them. Be like, what would you do with this character? And they see what they come up with, and people like it because it's Spider-Man. But they're like, I think I know how to do this better.
Like Sony never thought to themselves that like he should be Iron Man Jr.
No,
Okay, obviously they wouldn't be able to use Iron Man in an individual Sony movie, but there's no reason they couldn't say, oh, Peter Parker's this genius. He created his own technology. He became rich. He basically became his own Iron Man in his own universe. They don't do any of that. They stay true to the roots of the character, whether it is Peter Parker or Miles Morales.
yeah, I think maybe the reason why some people feel this way revisionist about the Andrew Garfield one is they really leaned into what is Peter Parker in those, and the people didn't like that at the time, but now they're really leaning into a different variation, but still leaning in the same way.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta say, I do think that maybe the Spider-Man Marvel movies, now that the time has passed, I've seen them all, I've had time to think about it, they're probably my least favorite, to be honest. Not that they're dog shit and they don't have their moments, but am I taking the original 2 Spider-Man movies over the Marvel ones? Yes. Am I taking the 2 Spider-Verse movies over any of the Marvel ones? Yes. But the Amazing Spider-Man movies and Spider-Man 3, it's like that's where it starts to get muddy to me, Like I do think that the Raimi movies, the first 2, and the Spider-Verse movies, obviously clear.
And I think the fact that I end up believing the animated one's clear is I think this kind of speaks to me that the character, not that it can't be done in real life, I just think that
This is where he belongs.
Yeah.
This is the medium to tell these stories, whether it's on a page or animated in a film. Right?
Me and you had the joke because I was wearing a Wong Kar-wai shirt that day, and somebody came up to me, so it kind of got
The
us thinking.
duality of man, the Wong Kar-wai shirt. Wong Kar-wai shirt
Yeah.
at fucking
This-
Spider-Verse.
And somebody going to watch the movie recognized it, but I was gonna say it's obviously that got us thinking about him as we were sitting there. But within the first 20 minutes, you're all like, look at the emotion and the color in this scene with Gwen and her dad, right? And they're like, I mean, isn't that all that In the Mood for Love is? Isn't that all that Fallen Angels is?
Lighting
And they'd be like,
those scenes
bro.
of Spider-Gwen and her dad.
And it's like changing, right? In just seconds in front of your face. Emotionally, just so connected to, color theory and just the color palette, reflecting the emotions that as a human being are changing within, it sometimes feels like microseconds. And I think to be able to get that animation, which seems like kind of sometimes watercolor type of radiance is. I'm not a heavy animation fan, so I'm sure somebody else has done this, but it's just amazing to see it done on such a big scale with Sony gives somebody money like that. And again, we talk about this with all of the movies that we could really care for. Something like Dune, when I guess they just really put that budget to use. And in an animation movie like this, I guess after how popular the first one was, because this isn't something I think we've brought up, and I don't really feel bad saying this. I kind of came in watching this movie ready to not like it as much as everybody else, because I kind of felt it was kind of quote unquote cringe that it's being pushed as the greatest movie ever. But the fact that I walked out being like, I get it.
I mean, it's not the movie. I always feel like I'm not sure how to feel about those kinds of things, because it's not the movie's fault.
No, it's not.
The movie's not saying, hey, this is the best movie ever.
It's not.
So when fans do it, it's like, okay, was Rick and Morty the best show ever? Was this album, whatever, the best album ever? Like, no, right? It just has a very loud fan base, and that can get annoying. But it's not the
movie's fault.
Yeah, it's the movie's
products
fault,
or whatever.
Yeah. Fault or the What are you gonna do, right?
Yeah.
Oh man, too bad. Too many people liked it.
Exactly. I mean, there's only a few instances where something like Avatar, I guess, where everybody kind of James Cameron himself feels that it has to be the biggest thing ever because for it to pay back, and it happening. But usually, there's not really movies that do that and then fall flat on their face.
That's just the power of big. I need this to be the greatest. I need this to be the highest grossing movie of all time. Yes, sir. Huh?
Yes, Papa.
Yes, please.
But I think ultimately, I ended up saying that like I agreed with how much I liked this movie. Obviously, it has its just story. Just bounces. I mean, it kind of just makes fun that all of the Spider-Man stories are connected, right? Even the movie itself kind of just comments on that trope. But I do think they do such a good idea, or such a good job with how much they care about the characters when it comes to the voice actors and how they're written, and also because this movie is long with its runtime, but it definitely uses it up to its max potential. It doesn't It
feels long as hell.
Yeah.
But by the time you get to the end, you're refreshed because you know that cliffhanger's there.
It's a roller coaster,
Yeah.
Even though it's you after so many loops, you obviously you're like, I know where this is going, but we didn't know, or I didn't know up until a couple of weeks before that it was supposed to be a part 1 of 2,
That's why it can't be a 5. I don't believe in giving part 1s or cliffhanger movies 5 stars.
That's why
you're not the full movie.
That's why Dune 1, same thing.
Yeah, you're not the full movie.
But had they given me the full 6 hours, it might be a 5.
Yeah.
It might have been like, you're crazy for this, but then it would have been a revelation. I would have been like the dude from Memoria.
Yeah. Exactly. One thing I wanted to say, because we haven't harped on him all that much, is the Miguel O'Hara character. He's the antagonist. He is not necessarily the bad guy. That's the wrong word to use, but he is the Spider-Man who is, at least in this film, the most jaded. I don't know.
Yeah.
There's obviously evil. They didn't really go too far into explaining like where the evil Spider-Men hang out, because obviously there is.
Yeah.
So like in the Spider-Verse comic books, there's like Man Spider, who's literally like a man spider. There's Spider-Man, who is literally like millions of spiders formed as a body that wears the Spider-Man suit.
I seen that.
So it's like, where are all these guys, right? I would like to see that, because I would imagine they're actually like, villains or whatever. But Miguel O'Hara is just, he's been through the mud. He's seen it all happen, right? So he's trying to hold everything together, and that's kind of what puts him in that position of being the opposing force. But earlier you had mentioned in the episode that although it has all of this like stuff that makes it like an emotionally grounded movie, and it doesn't really get dark because it's a kid's movie, I think one of the ways that they subverted that, like Miguel O'Hara's origin, and made it more kid friendly is that originally in the comics, the reason he gets the powers is because he's addicted to some like futuristic drug, and he's gonna like run a test, like put some serum in his body or whatever to try to cure himself of the drug. But some jealous scientist coworker like sabotages the thing, and then it turns him into like this vampire spider guy that, you know, they didn't harp on it too much. They didn't really give us everything, so I imagine they might go back to it in the next one. But yeah, like that. Like same way that Marvel, when the Iron Man movies came out, they had to kind of sway away from the, oh, he's an alcoholic. They made him addicted to the fucking like motor oil shit that keeps his reactor on, right?
Yeah.
Or, you know, even Guardians, they harp on it for 2 seconds that Star-Lord has become a nasty alcoholic in the post-Endgame world, right?
Yeah, I mean, they just show you, and it got better.
Yeah, so it's like that would have been a nice little like push, like, oh, all right, they're really trying to tell some edgy stories for kids, you know, about this guy. But it wasn't, you know, it's neither here nor there to me. I just found it interesting. That's like, of course, they kind of, you know, scrubbed that out of the story.
Yeah, like at the end of the day, like you said, we enjoyed these movies a lot, but I do think the key demographic here is teenagers.
Yeah, if I was like 17, I'd be so inspired. I'd be like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. I want to be an animator, you know?
Exactly. And as much as we obviously enjoyed the movie too, I think that just comes from us enjoying the art of cinema. But I don't know if it necessarily speaks to my age group.
Yeah, well, so I think we can kind of end soon, right? But one last thing I wanted to talk about is the discourse that goes around every time an animated movie comes out.
Oh, it's funny.
Animation is cinema, right? And then it's like, oh, but it's only kids' movies. What do you think about the gatekeeping of animation? That it's as a fan of animation who isn't, you know, the biggest fan.
I think you have to shill all of it if you're really going to be pushing that it's slept on. Does that make sense? Because I feel like a lot of the time.
Like, so you should have to shill a bad animated movie.
Not shill it, but I think that if you are gonna say that animation is cinema, which it is, it kind of feels very
Doesn't it feel
redundant.
dumb to say that it's not?
Yeah, because that's what I'm saying is the person that says that is kind of really trying to push that almost it's underrated, right? But it's there's the same way that movies get made that. There's an argument to be made that there's more bad movies, right? Obviously, than good movies.
In all movies,
and
right?
we don't just judge the yeah. No, not animated, but I mean just movies in general. There's more bad movies made in a year than there is good movies, and I think the second that somebody kind of dismisses an animated film that looks bad, somebody is like, oh, you're just not into the style, because there's that excuse for it, right? Because there could be a really good movie made with stick figure animation if it's done right, but somebody could be like, I just don't like that animation, and I think that it's somebody might take that as in like you just don't get it, as opposed to a bad movie as like the acting is bad, you know, because like animation is kind of always assumed that, well, anybody could do it, even though that's not true.
Yeah, it's interesting because it does seem kind of unfair, because how many movies have you watched that are not just absolutely gorgeous, but the story carries? You know, so like, why does animation never get the? I don't really see the difference in why you wouldn't give flack to a movie for not looking beautiful when
it's animated.
No, like any movie, right?
Any movie.
You'd be like, that looked like shit.
Yeah,
like, yeah, but that's not the point. But with animation, if animation is cinema, it shouldn't be the point of how good it looks, right? Like,
no.
You could still convey these emotions and tell these stories, and who cares what it looks like, right? Because why do people make Play-Doh movies? Why do people make Lego movies like that 14-year-old kid who got to do the Lego segment in this movie?
I was gonna say like it isn't based off the animation like you said, because something like Flea came out right 2 years ago, which I've never seen.
The Summit of the Gods,
where it ideally is a style that does look more rudimentary, as they would say, but it's carried heavily through what's actually happening in these emotional scenes with stuff that's portrays past the animation. It connects with people past that, right? So I think what I wanted to get at to answer your question, though, is that it is cinema. It's obviously a very redundant question, but it doesn't mean that like you can't judge it because it's animated, because I feel like that's kind of like where the issue comes in. Like some people, it's a bad animated movie, you know, just because it's animated doesn't mean that it's any better than a bad movie. They're equal. Like,
yeah. Okay. Like South Park, bigger, longer, uncut, right?
Mhm.
So because South Park is a TV show that's a cartoon, right? An anime, should it not exist as a movie? You know. But then, would you really want to see the live action South Park movie? You know, like
This
that's
one,
kind of
yeah.
where it's like, I don't know if anybody wants to see that. You know, so
I mean, the prime example, I think that's a really good point, because there's certain things that just exist in that realm and in that space. Being one of them, that's obviously a sin and something that we enjoyed a lot, at least in the beginning, is Rick and Morty.
yeah,
People try to pull that humor into real life. People try to pull that humor into Ant-Man. You know,
Into
and
the
it doesn't.
MCU.
And look how
Yeah.
look how terrible it ends up, because it's not. It can't be done right. It only makes sense for Rick to be this crazy of a genius alcoholic because it's animated. And like, how would you even do that? You know, in real life. And I think it ends up almost becoming too. It's supposed to be cartoonishly comical, and it's cartoonishly for a reason. It's supposed to be ridiculous. The same way that, why do we care about the raccoon when it could talk, right? But the second that, you know, we were watching a video of a cat being in a blender, we're like, just stale face, like, damn,
Yeah,
world's
exactly.
fucked up. But the one of it talking, and it's because those cartoonish effects add personification or humor, or they anthropomorphize,
anthropomorphize.
and you know, and I think that's where the resonant is for people who are really heavy with anime. That I think always kind of makes them push, like, to say the statement anime is cinema, because they feel like it's underrated. But I think it's you have to be into that type of mindset the same way that when you go to Disneyland, you're not there to be a fucking hater. Because if you are, you're gonna have a bad time. Be like, oh, I'm supposed to think I'm flying. Hey, come on. You have to buy into it.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't get it. Like, I don't understand people who say they don't like animation, because it just feels like, even if you want to say like it's for kids, it's not for kids. It's like, is there just a piece of you that's dead inside that doesn't appreciate art in motion? Just like, even just that, you know, like if the painting you had in your house or whatever, like if you would, a painting you think is so beautiful, like that's animated technically, right? Or, well, it's a drawing, but it could be made into an animation. And like, you know, if you saw Starry Night as a picture and then you see Starry Night as a video, you're like, that's garbage. You've lost me, because now it's a cartoon.
My favorite point that I think is always, because like I said, I have no skin in the game for these arguments, because I don't stand on. I don't like think they're underrated, and I don't think they're not cinema. So I'm like, this seems like a dumb discussion to me. Be like, if you like them, fucking watch them. If you don't watch them. You know, but. My favorite argument for why it's dumb to think that they're for kids is, who the fuck makes these movies?
Grown ass adults. Dude.
So
You
like,
think the Boss Baby has a factory of 7-year-olds churning out Spider-Verse?
you think they have that imagination? You know what I mean? And like, obviously kids have this crazy
From
animation,
an
but
adult who's probably done a bunch of drugs.
yeah, and also it's the adult. You know, we have our favorite places to go. I'm not gonna get too specific where, but you'll meet a certain person who works there that's really nerdy, and at the end of the day, person's really connected to the teenager that they are, right? But in the right conditions, that teenager finally has the resources to draw the crazy stuff that he was thinking about, and that's when you get something like Spider-Verse, where I think you're very well not childish, but you're connected to your childish imagination, which I think is something that people lose. Right? A lot of people lose that value. So I think it's kind of sucks that sometimes animators kind of get looked at as like, oh, you do stuff for kids.
Yeah, well, you know, I think this was an interesting conversation. Do you feel like you got your final words out? Did you say everything you wanted to say about Spider-Verse?
Yeah, I mean, like anything else, you know, there's gonna be a bunch of discussion, obviously, already
We'll
around
talk about this at the end of the year again.
the storyline, all the theories of what's gonna happen, which is stuff that I've already been thinking about, you know. But I am curious to see how this is gonna do in the award season, just because I want to see. Same with John Wick 4.
Big year for IP, baby.
Yeah, I was like, I want to see if they're really, because I don't expect it obviously to win anything, like win major, but I see if it gives any recognition. I mean, Black Panther got an award last year, so I do think that it'll definitely be mentioned. But there is going to be an animated movie once that's just going to clear things, and I'm curious to see where this one lands.
Well, hey, I'll end the conversation like this about the animation is cinema. Come and See could be animated. Spider-Verse could never happen in real life. On that note, thank you. Good night.
Bye.